JavaScript is a powerful programming language, but it has some tricky parts that can confuse even experienced developers. One of these tricky parts is variable scope, which is how and where you can use variables in your code. It's important to understand how var, let, and const work to write clean and error-free code. Developers often assume let and const variables are not hoisted due to the error thrown when accessing them before initialization. However, they are hoisted but remain uninitialized, holding the value uninitialized. In my previous blog post titled JavaScript Execution, What Happens Behind the Scenes, we have seen the creation phase and variable initialization. What is variable scope? Variable scope refers to the context in which a variable is defined and accessible. JavaScript has two main types of scopes. Global scope. Variables declared outside of any function are in the global scope and can be accessed from anywhere in the code. Local scope or function scope. Variables declared within a function are in the local scope and can only be accessed within that function. Block scope. A variable is only accessible within the block, denoted by curly braces in which it is declared. First, you need to understand how JavaScript search the variable reference. JavaScript follows a concept called lexical scoping or static scoping. This means that when a variable is referenced in a certain scope, JavaScript will look for the variable declaration in the current scope. If it doesn't find it there, it will move up to the parent scope and continue this process until it reaches the global scope or finds the variable. On line 7, console.log x prints 20, referencing the block-scoped variable x from line 6. On line 9, console.log x prints 15, referencing the function-scoped variable x from line 4. On lines 11 and 13, console.log x prints 10, referencing the global variable x from line 1. Example 1. The first console.log x in the if block would cause a reference error because x is in the temporal dead zone until its declaration. The reference error occurs in the execution phase. In JavaScript, variable declarations using let and const are hoisted to the top of their block scope during the creation phase, but they are not initialized until the execution phase reaches the actual line of code where the declaration occurs. This period between the start of the block and the line where the variable is declared is called the temporal dead zone, TDZ. To learn more about variable declaration and initialization, please refer to my previous blog post, JavaScript Execution, What Happens Behind the Scenes. The link is provided in the video description. Example 2. The var keyword is function-scoped and does not respect block-level scope. Therefore, on line 4, console.log x will output 10. On line 5, we are redeclaring the same variable with the value 20, so console.log x. On line 6 will output 20. Due to function scope, the value 20 remains in the variable, so console.log x. On line 8 will also output 20. Example 3. The error occurs because the var keyword does not respect block-level scope when redeclaring a variable that has been declared using let within the same block. Variable declarations with the same name but different types, var, const, let, within the same scope are not allowed. Let x equal sign 10 declares x within the function scope. Inside the if block, var x equals sign 5 attempts to redeclare x, which has already been declared, using let within the same function scope. This action causes the syntax error. Example 4. What if we change the var keyword to let and let to var? Var x equals sign 10 is function scoped, while let x equals sign 5 within the if block is block scoped. Thus, the program executes without errors, producing output. Example 5. In JavaScript, when you declare a variable with const, its binding cannot be reassigned. Example 6. In JavaScript, when you declare an object or an array using const, it means you cannot reassign the variable itself to a different object or array. However, the properties and elements within them can still be modified. This behavior is because const creates a constant reference to the object or array, not to its contents. Example 7. In JavaScript, when you declare an object or an array using const, it means you cannot reassign the variable itself to a different object or array. However, the properties and elements within them can still be modified. This behavior is because const creates a constant reference to the object or array, not to its contents. Same for next example. Example 8. In JavaScript, when you declare a variable with const, its binding cannot be reassigned. Example 9. In JavaScript, when you declare an object or an array using const, it means you cannot reassign the variable itself to a different object or array. The use of const in this context prevents the variable greet from being reassigned to a different function or value. Therefore, attempting to override or reassign greet to a different function would result in an error.